what happens if you decide to vertical mow when you have a little bit of dollar spot? You get dollar spot mania. That's what we're seeing here, is an aggressive attack caused by a dollar spot under ideal environmental conditions after vertical mowing a POA bentgrass green that had some dollar spot. As we scan around, you can see the infection centers are quite small, so it was a very rapid spread of the disease. It's been stopped by an application of emerald, so things look like they're going to recover okay, but it basically burned a bunch of little holes wherever the clippings that were moved around from the vertical mowing were spread. Now let's take this back to the lab and see if we can find the fungus that's causing this. Although it looks like dollar spot, we always like to check to make sure. Well, that was a pretty serious infestation of dollar spot. We went ahead and took a sample just to confirm, to make sure that we've got the pathogen we're looking for. It seemed pretty clear, but I always like to double check. When we brought the sample back to the lab, and here's, you can see what it looks like. And you can see there's some areas like right in here where we can see there's a little bit of mycelium. There really is not much else you can see. There's a little bit of mycelium here and there through the sample. It's been treated with emerald, which is a very effective dollar spot material, so you wouldn't expect to see much activity on the surface of the sample, but we're still able to get a little bit of that disease hanging on. So let's take it over to the dissecting microscope and the compound scope and see what kind of structures are there and make sure that it's consistent with the dollar spot. Well, when we look under a dissecting microscope and sort of zoom in on the foliage, we can see there is some mycelium around the leaf tips of a few areas. And if we scan around a little bit, we can see it's mostly really on the dead tissues, but maybe a little bit of the live tissues are involved. So if we just go ahead and we'll zoom back and we'll grab a piece of this and put it on a microscope slide, we'll get a little better look of the hypha and the hyphae in there and see if it's consistent with what we'd expect from dollar spot. This piece of hypha shows a lot of the characteristics that we're looking for. It looks a lot like Rhizoctonia because the branch is just about right angle and there appears to be some septa near the branch. But the interesting thing is, as you move along this growing hypha, you'll see that the diameter of the hypha narrows down as it gets to the growing tip of the hypha. That's different than we see with Rhizoctonia species that have a consistently uniform diameter of the hyphae. Sometimes these are called secondary hyphae as opposed to a primary hyphae, which is the fat part of the hypha. And here we can see a typical sort of a mess of hyphae around, and right in the center there's sort of an angled branch, and you see the globules inside the hypha. That's typical for a dollar spot. And then if we move around a little, we'll see the little thin hyphae, which is the growing tip of the hyphae, which is called the secondary hypha in this case. So you'd have the primary, the fat ones, and the secondary, which are the little skinny hyphae, making this typical for the dollar spot fungus, Sclerotinia homeocarpa. Well, to avoid a replay of this type of a dollar spot outbreak at your location, be sure to put down a preventive application for dollar spot control if you've had a history of dollar spot and you're just getting ready to carry out a practice like vertical mowing or aeration.